What's going on, you loyal listeners? Thank you for tuning in to the L Squared podcast. I'm your host here, Luke Larson, and joining me today, as per the unusual, director and producer of the new film Vultures, showing at the South Dakota Film Festival this week, starting September 16th all the way through the 25th at southdakotafilmfest.org. Friend of the show, director David Fritzson returns. Thank you so much for coming back on the show, man.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Luke. Always good to be doing this, even if it's virtual. It works out pretty well. It's good to see your face. So,
yeah, those are the times we're in now, unfortunately. But I'm glad I got to see your film virtually, and I hope a lot of other people do too, which is what's great about this festival for sure. But I honestly, I follow you, David. If the loyal listeners haven't heard the first interview we did, we met 2 years ago in person, believe it or not, guys, and got to see your film Wireless in theaters with the crowd, which was great. And you had said that at the South Dakota Film Festival showing for Wireless, I remember you saying that was like one of the last times you were going to see it in a theater with people, right?
COVID aside, it was the last time we were planning on having it in a film festival after doing a whole run of that film for all 2018 and 2019. And it just felt like a great time to kind of conclude our film festival run, just because we were so blown away at how accommodating and warm South Dakota Film Festival was to us. And we just had a packed house, beautiful theater, and just wonderful people there. So I couldn't have asked for a better, I guess you could call it, finale for the film.
Yeah, definitely. And that is, I mean, obviously everything sucks about COVID, but just that experience and having that community, really being there, but hopefully being able to bring that in a virtual environment. Like we said before we started filming, it looks like a nice, warm, cozy place that you're at behind you. That looks like a dope place. I would love to be there, but yeah, so since then, followed your work, and I'd seen that you were talking about doing the process of making Vultures, and I was so pumped to see it. I'm so glad you brought it to the festival, and I'm so glad I got to see it. But I'm curious how this project came about.
That's a really good question. It started in a way I never would have predicted would have happened. The folks that worked on Wireless, as in the cinematographer, the producer, they're their own separate company called Simpatico, and they were contacted by a writer and novelist, Chavez L. Brown, who's a Baltimore-based writer, and said he had a short film he had to produce and create, but needed someone who could direct it, someone who could produce it, and someone who could edit it, and just help with the logistics of just making a short film, because it was his first time doing so. And unfortunately, they were busy at the time, because that's typically what they do. But they passed the job on to me to see if I'd be interested. And so Chavez and I talked, and I mean, the second we got on the phone together, we just knew like we were going to work real well together. Like it just clicked so easily. And he gave me this horror script that had a different villain than what ended up happening in the film. But we looked at it, and I just thought to myself, like, this is really awesome. This could be a really good shot at, telling someone else's story, which was a big challenge since Wireless was something I had written on my own and my own experiences. So being able to tell an entirely different story from someone else was a challenge on its own. So that's really how it came to fruition, is just him reaching out and hiring me to do so. And it went on to be selected, or part of why he started the whole thing was because he was selected by Bronze Studios, who have produced films like Green Knight, Joker, Judas and the Black Messiah, a lot of classics that have been coming out lately. They were doing a campaign to promote independent filmmakers and showcasing their films, and wanted him to make a horror film that paid some tribute to one of their own movies. And the film that it paid tribute to, and you might have noticed a couple of hints in there, was actually Queen and Slim.
Oh, okay.
Yep, just little traces of it. There's a couple like tributes to it and what have you, but yeah, we spent the next couple of months working together, putting together a script and really fine tuning it, as it was his first short film. We wanted to you have to pack a lot in 5 minutes, just making sure we had it all compact. And yeah, spent a lot of time working with actors and getting things rolling. And it was really a great experience that I'm never going to forget.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it was a big collaboration, and that's what I was curious about because yeah, well, that's awesome. I mean, it sounds like a really wonderful experience because I was just curious about how much like of yourself you were able, to put into it while still honoring, like you said, someone else's story.
It was it's really a tough balance. And it was especially difficult in a way because I wanted to be sure that I was doing right by not only Chavez's writing, but also doing right by these characters he created, and making sure that they came off as realistic, that they would have a connection with people, and and also just in the current climate our country has right now, with just with how the Black community has been treated and just been punished and so unjustifiably in so many ways. It was a tough subject. There's something that we really wanted to take our time and be cautious with. I would say one of the biggest things that changed in the writing process and how to collaborate was, without giving anything away, the ending was actually supposed to be very, very grim, where it just did not end well for any of the characters at all. And the week before, days before we started filming, we had already set up the shot list, we already set up the production schedule, we already set up everything to a T. Chavez calls me in the morning and says, "I think I want to change the ending." And my producer head was just like, "What? Like, you serious?" Like, and he just stood his ground. And and I'm thinking just by producer mind, not thinking emotionally, not thinking logistically. But he just said, "David, if I didn't speak up now, I wouldn't be able to live with myself, because I just can't have this end in tragedy with everything that was going on." And when I heard that, it hit me really hard, and I thought, okay, we need to conduct. I didn't want to be a decider on how this film ends. I wanted it to be a collaboration with our actors too. So we called an emergency meeting with our two lead actors, Kelly Williams and Deontay Johnson, who plays King and Slim, and with Chavez. And we spent the entire day coming up with ideas for how it was going to end, and we would bring it to a vote. And one of the ideas I had pitched involved, again, not giving anything away, but it was something that resonated with our lead actor, Kelly, is he heard the ending that I pitched and said, "This is an ending I like because there are so many films out there that end with us in tragedy. And I'm tired of it." And while the ending of Vultures, as you may know, ends kind of somber in a way, there is a part that gives you hope for that lead character, that he has changed, he has done something for himself to become a new person. And with that ending, that's what we decided to go with, and it worked in our budget, it worked in all of our time constraints, and we went with it and took a big chance on that last 30 seconds on that film, and I like to think it really paid off.
Absolutely, it did. Yeah, because it was something where, not to give anything away, but you are just kind of waiting for that brutal gut punch where you're like, no faith left in humanity at all, and all is lost. And I love the ending. And speaking of Kelly Williams,
yeah,
I wrote down he is a revelation. Holy shit, that guy is good.
I'm going to tell you a real fun story about Kelly Williams. This was his first time on screen.
What?
Ever. He has some experience in theater. And I started directing theater, so we worked very well together. And I just said, I had him read a monologue at the very beginning just to, figure out his acting chops, and just said, okay, I'm going to tell you about when to scale things back, not to get too theatrical at times, during rehearsals. And we found that balance between the two. And he was just, both Deontay and him were just wonderful to work with. Deontay was also new to acting in general, and, really, pulled himself to, do an incredible performance as well. And we had spent a lot of time with their final scene that they're together in. That was our biggest focus for the whole film, because I thought if this scene doesn't work, none of the movie will. And watching that scene grow and grow over the course of 2 months was just really beautiful to see. But I couldn't agree with you more about Kelly. He's truly a revelation. And I know that I talked to him after we filmed this, and this film inspired him to keep pushing and keep acting. And I'm so glad that he's pursuing his passion.
Yeah, that's awesome. It is just his eyes especially just really like take you there, and it's very powerful. What was it like? I was curious about this too, like when you're in that space, when you're on set and you're directing, and like you said, that if this scene doesn't work, there's a lot on that, and it's sort of, yeah, all the subject matter is really heavy, but what's kind of like the tone like on set when that's kind of the underlying theme for everything?
I think, I don't know if there's much of a tone. It's more of that, even if it's a heavy, subject and a tough subject, no matter what you do when you're putting together a film, especially an independent film, when, you're not making a ton of money, people are taking pay cuts to make this work. You treat your cast and crew like they're your best friends. You want to make sure they're taken care of. You want to make sure they're okay physically, mentally throughout the whole process. You want to have people involved that are having the same mentality too, looking out for each other. And I feel that if you have a really strong crew and you have a really positive just vibe going through it, no matter what the subject matter is on camera, you're going to have a much better product at the end of the day. So that was really the tone, honestly. I know that there was a moment where we had rehearsed the last scene that Kelly and Deontay have together, and it was the first time the crew had seen it. And there was a moment where we were making our way in the woods, and we just did a rehearsal of it. And I remember you could hear a pin drop in these woods. It was so quiet because everyone was attentive. It was like they were watching the play. And I just remember seeing a few of our crew members start to shed a tear during it, just because they just, were really surprised by it. So that's the only time I can think of a serious tone. But other than that, we just wanted to just keep pushing positivity the entire time. Like that's what Chavez and I were just aiming for all day.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I find myself wanting to ask this of filmmakers, but were there any big lessons that you learned that you took away from this experience?
That's a good question. I'm in a second for that. You might have to edit out how it takes a couple of seconds for me to do that.
I know. I kind of I should have sent it to you early so you could
ruminate. Oh, you're good. Yeah, no, you're fine. I would say the biggest, there was a big lesson I think I just learned in empathy for everyone. Just remembering that while there's a lot of things racing in your thoughts, especially as a director, just making sure things were going on. I took a lot of time sitting down with different cast and crew members when I had downtime, just to sit with them and see if they were okay. We had, some people that were really nervous to get started, and I would give them a pep talk, those sort of things. And I think just having that empathy and just remembering that you're not the only person on set who's got a lot of things going on in their mind, and being able to accommodate that if you can, really makes a world of a difference. And when I saw that influence kind of just go throughout the day, and carried out by not just me, but by others, it just really made a huge impact for a film that, was done with very little money and very little time.
Yeah, absolutely. And all this just, David, you're just a really great director in every sense of the word, especially on this, like it's a project that wasn't yours, you didn't write, but yet you took the reins, and you were able to, just be so collaborative, and also take charge and get everybody in order, and also like have empathy for everybody working on it, and to be able to tell the story and do it in a way that honors everybody and isn't, selfish or showy, and really serves the story. So it's just great to see. And you just really are a really great director. And I'm excited to just see how far you go.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. That being said, A couple notes. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Would you ever consider, like, do you think Vultures would ever be like a feature? I was thinking about that. Would this work as a feature, or does it only work as a short? Because I feel
I
like
think
there's a lot of context, like before and after, that you could, add to, or that's sort of implied.
yeah, there totally is. But the key to a short film that I heard years and years and years ago, and I take it to heart, is that when it comes to a short film and you're telling it, you come in late and you leave early. And that was kind of the goal I had in mind with this film, because Chavez had so many great ideas, and there was a lot of context for families and dynamics in the family between them and his brothers and such. And we just didn't have the time for it. And we found ways that we could imply those things to keep people watching, and maybe watch it a second or third time to pick up on some things. But at the same time, I think this might be more of a Chavez answer, because he's the one who created the characters. I know he is working on other projects that are in a similar vein. But if you asked me directly, I would say no. I think it's fine the way it is, because you came in late and just came in right in a critical moment of these two young men's lives, and then left when you knew that the person's life was going to change forever. We could show that story, but do we have to? It's like, no, we don't. The only thing that we added really at the end was, if you noticed in the credits, you can hear Kelly just heavily breathing throughout the credits, and it's just because life doesn't work where you just move on to the next event. You need moments to breathe, and I thought that was necessary to include in the credits, so that's why that's there. But that's the only thing I would think I would leave, and that I would add to it is just that part of it. So
Yeah, well, you're right. It does work very well as a short, obviously, and just in that critical moment, like you say, definitely at a crossroads, and you can see it's implied well, the before and after, that you really feel the through line, and I think you're right. I think the impact probably is felt heavier just from that short amount of time. But that being said, for all the loyal listeners out there, and everybody watching, is there, like, I don't know, maybe this is pretentious to say, but like a central message that you would want to, or you think that the film is putting out there, or that you would have to people watching it?
I don't think that's pretentious at all. I think that's a wonderful question, Luke, because this is something that we've been trying to say for a lot of people, and I'm going to relay actually what Chavez wants this film to be. The fact that you watch this film and you see these people who were innocent at the end of the day, and always were. But you see cops after them. You see the media after them. You see these them being hunted by others. All three of those people, you can almost call them vultures, and that's why it's called that. That's what Chavez told me when he decided on the final name. But the thing he was frustrated by is partially what we were talking about earlier, with kind of the narrative that is expected for a lot of films. Chavez's goal with this was to change the narrative. It's one of our hashtags that we use, is to change the narrative. We want to change things around that, that people reconsider and really think about, people's side of the story. And I think it's really important, especially looking at this, like looking at a character like Slim, looking at him as a human being and just thinking, would he really be capable of the things that the media is saying that they're doing, or that what cops are talking about that they're doing? And the answer is no. It's just a matter of taking that step and breathing and thinking, what is the narrative here? So that's really the message we were trying to get across, is to change that narrative that has been happening.
Yeah, that's powerful. And yeah, just important to I don't know, be reminded, or have that, like you mentioned earlier, the empathy, but just thinking, like, these are real people. It's not happening to somebody else. It's not somebody else's problem. Like, it's all of our issue, and we're all people, and just thinking of that as a person and not a statistic, especially not an other, is extremely powerful. So loyal listeners, please check out Vultures. South Dakota Film Fest is going on from September 16th all the way to the 25th at southdakotafilmfest.org. It's free. Go on. There's lots of great films. Check out Vultures. And you'll have a great experience. And it's very powerful. So any lasting words or any plugs you want to do before we go?
Yeah, I would love that. Thank you. I just want to give a big thank you to everyone involved in Vultures. If I listed every one of you, I would probably forget. So I'm really sorry, but I feel like I'd list like 9 and then forget the 10th person. But obviously the cast and the crew were absolutely wonderful. I'm always grateful for Chavez for just our worlds colliding and us and him choosing me to tell his story, because I feel it's always so challenging when someone makes art and says, "Here, take this," and you they have to trust you with that. So that means a lot. And of course, want to thank Bronze Studios for originally publishing this film online and supporting us as leading independent film. You don't ever see that very often these days. And obviously, I just wanted to thank you all at the South Dakota Film Festival. This guy is from 2019 when I was there. I wear it all the time. Absolutely loved it. And I understand, this has been a scary time and tough decisions had to be made during this, but despite it being virtual, I am still so glad we are all together and able to share our films. So it's truly an honor to be part of this festival. So that's my last plug, I'd say.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And, follow David's work, check him out. He, like I said, he's great, and he's an up and comer, and he's bound for great things. Check out, keep listening to the L Squared podcast. We'll have interviews with filmmakers here coming up at the festival, but main thing is go to southdakotafilmfest.org and check these out. Once again, David, thank you so much for coming on the show, and until next time.
Absolutely, my pleasure, man. Thanks for having me, and until next time for sure.